Good afternoon. My name is Aileen Tapia.
My name is Jose Gonzalez.
Devin Carrico.
Kenya Moreno.
U.S. profit on immigrants. Immigrants generate free money to the U.S. economy because they don't pay taxes. Each lifetime of an immigrant costs the U.S. $55,000, and that money is reinvested in taxes. Mexicans work in jobs where they get paid in cash, which means their labor and humanity doesn't exist. Like I said, they don't pay taxes, they don't report what they gain each year. Mexican immigrants work under harsh agricultural conditions, like in California where they work in fields, and in Washington. Undocumented immigrants contribute $300 billion to the U.S. gross domestic product. Undocumented immigrants are used as a scapegoat by political groups.
Monopolies versus oligopolies. So monopolies, that system is when there's only one business that provides a product or service, and there's no competition. So this wasn't very effective because this business or company didn't have to concentrate on the quality of the product, but the quantity. So they just have to keep producing and producing, and since they're the only ones selling it, the people have to buy it from them, although it might not be that good. And oligopolies, that's when there's multiple companies for it, but there's a few of them that are like big, like let's say like Walmart and Kmart, and they kind of have to compete. So this system is more effective because it pressures the company to make sure that they have the best quality on their products.
NAFTA. NAFTA is the North American Free Trade Agreement. It is the international treaty adopted in January 1994 by the US, Mexico, and Canada. This treaty eliminates tariffs and gets rid of charges that make imported merchandise more expensive. For example, in Mexico, before NAFTA, cars which came from the United States had a 20% extra charge. And once NAFTA was established, the extra charge reduced to 10%. Mexicans disapprove of NAFTA because it hasn't brought widespread prosperity to Mexico. US and Canada have benefited more than Mexico. United States has been the most benefited, and Mexico has been the one that has seen less prosperity. And it makes imports and exports easier between the oligopolies. NAFTA promises. So these are promises that NAFTA says will do, and they put them in a way that looks very nice, that looks like it's going to be a benefit, but it's really not. For example, to contribute to the harmonious development and expansion of global trade and function as homogenizer to extend international cooperation. This seems like, oh wow, these businesses are going to get to expand and get new things and better things. But what this really is saying is that they get to go to places, and if there's small businesses there, people, they get to demolish those businesses to put their own company, and they leave people unemployed. And eventually those unemployed people might end up working for those new businesses for the minimum wage.
Protect creativity and innovation and promote trade and goods and services that are the subject of intellectual property. So what this is saying, if let's say Walmart comes up with a new product, it is their intellectual property, and if anybody else wants to produce that product, they have to pay Walmart money.
Create new employment opportunities, improve working conditions, and living standards in each territory. So only one of these three things are true, which is new employment opportunities. Because as these businesses expand, they need more people to work in these places. So there is more employment, but the working conditions and living standards do not improve.
Maintain flexibility to safeguard public welfare. So what this is saying is that while they're doing all these exporting and importing, that they're going to make sure that the public is always safe. But it isn't true, because since when the border is built, there's immigrants this actually causes more deaths in the public.
Protect, enhance, and enforce basic workers' rights. So what this really means is that if there's an old worker and a new worker, the employer gets to get rid of the old worker and get a new worker and pay him less money, but then the new worker, who is probably an undocumented immigrant who got paid very little amounts of money in Mexico, seems like he's getting paid a lot, but really he's getting paid very little.
Because the old worker was around when there was a union. So the union protected the worker and made sure that he got paid the right amount of money. But with NAFTA, they get rid of the union, so then all I have to do is get rid of the old worker and get a new one and pay him less. The truth about NAFTA. So with NAFTA, it creates a border. That way they can import and export. And this causes the border disease. So what the border disease is that just because there's the physical border, which is the fence, it causes the people that are in the outside, which in this case would be Mexico, to feel oppressed because they see the wall and they can't get through, and they think that, they're like, are we bad? Are we an enemy? Why are they putting this wall to block us? And the people that are in the inside, which is the US, they feel like the ones on the outside, although they might not even know who they are, they think that they're an enemy because there's a wall blocking them off. And also it makes them feel like bigger because they're allowed to be in a special land that they can't. It also brings violence because of the border. There's a lot of drug smuggling and human smuggling, and sometimes there's shooting of people trying to protect drugs. And it gives like businesses like Walmart, when NAFTA is created, Walmart is allowed to expand to Mexico. So this allows Walmart to kick people out of their houses and demolish them to build a Walmart, and they have permission to do that. They're allowed to do that. Nobody can stop them. And since the oligopolies can expand, it gives them more opportunities to exploit more and more people.
Okay, in this graph we can see the participation of countries in NAFTA. Mexico is the color gray, the orange stands for United States, and the color blue stands for Canada. Control of corruption. We can see that Mexico was the most corrupt because it's in the negative numbers instead of the positives. So we can see that United States and Canada are controlled in corruption. Fulfillment, to the agreement. We can see that the promises Mexico makes to their okay, I'm sorry. The fulfillment the Mexico do. Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry. Mexico don't fulfill what it promises. We can see that United States fulfill what it promises, and the Canada fulfill and do more of what they promise. Effectiveness of government, we can see that Mexico doesn't work for its people, but for the industry. We can also see the United States has an effective government, and Canada has the most effective government. Power of decision. We can see that Mexico has a low power of decision when it gets to making decisions about NAFTA. And we can see that the United States has power of decision during making this kind of decisions during the NAFTA. And Canada has a high power of decision on making when it comes to making decisions of NAFTA.
Critical to economy. Why the U.S.-Mexico border is critical to economy? For one, the U.S.-Mexico border earns $1 billion every day through the imports and exports that they make between each other. And millions of U.S. jobs depend on U.S. trade with Mexico. Every 1 out of 24 jobs are linked to the border. So without it, many people would be unemployed. U.S. industries vital to our economy depend on Mexico. Again, industries would go down without the border and also the people who work there. Mexico is on the rise with a growing middle class looking to legally cross our southern border to spend tourism dollars in the United States. Well, most of Mexicans, you can see when you go to Walmart or these stores, most of the license plates say Sonora because a lot of Mexicans cross to this site to buy they're going to use their products, their food. They cross to this site to buy their merchandise, so it creates tourism for the United States. And border communities throughout the U.S. Southwest depend on Mexico to keep their economies growing. So there are a lot of undocumented immigrants who come to this site without papers. So that in a way helps the U.S. because they get to do the labor and people pay them the minimum wage or sometimes even less than minimum wage.
Products traded this year. Mexico trades their oil products, silver, cotton, and cars for the U.S. money. Mexico trades more than $1 billion worth of product a day with the U.S. In a year, Mexico trades around $300 billion worth of product with the U.S. Money trade. 1 billion cross-border commerce is taking place every day. $45 million there are $45 million in profit per hour daily. Mexico purchased $163 billion in the U.S. goods and in 2010 alone.
So here we have a table of how much money, and these are millions or billions, that they trade every year. So we can see that Mexico is the third country that the U.S. makes trades with, and then from Mexico it's China, and then the number one is Canada, which is so the U.S. makes most of their trades with Canada.
Minimum wage. In Nogales, Sonora, the minimum wage is $4.80 per day. In Arizona, it is $8.05 per hour for 40 hours a week. So with this, well, in Mexico, they don't get paid a lot. It's hard to make a living with that money. So that's why that's why we see more immigrants today than there was, because the government is corrupt in Mexico.
The Pan American Highway. So with the Pan American Highway, which we can see here with the red, so it's an international highway, and what this is supposed to do, it facilitates the transport of products across all America, and it's really important and essential to America because it helps transport all these products which they need to sometimes it's food, sometimes it's stuff like petroleum or iron for factories and stuff like that. And there's this quote, and it says, "The Pan American Highway is the only unfinished international highway, but it will be the most important highway in the world." And the quote is by George Bedek Avilera. The U.S. So since the highway's unfinished, these are three places where it could lead to, and that's the Pacific Coast, the Atlantic Coast, and the Panamanian and Colombian border.
Railroad imports and exports. The top imports are alcohol, silver, tropical fruits, and tomatoes. Exports. The top exports to Mexico is electrical machinery, mineral fuel, and oil vehicles and chemicals. Imports. The top imports to the United States is vehicles, trucks, and auto parts, electronic machinery, mineral fuel, oil crud, and optic and medical instruments and metals.
Okay, so all of this relates to the border because we get to see how much money the US spends on the border, but they still make a profit out of it. And we see how the border and the illegal immigrants and the undocumented people that are in the US are actually critical to the US because currently there's been so many immigrants, and since immigrants don't get a refund in their taxes, the US makes $300 billion a year from illegal immigrants because the immigrants pay taxes but they never get a refund. So the US is starting to depend on the Mexicans, and and how Mexicans are actually helping the US make their border safer to keep out the Mexicans.